Run With Chestnut.
Welcome to the Run With Chestnut podcast. This is episode number 19. I'm joined today by my two best buddies of the world and under the world. Maybe not.
I don't think we need any more introductions. Hello.
Yes. What's up, guys?
Hello.
Hi.
Today, we have two interesting topics lined up. This actually was sparked with a conversation we had a day or two ago. Simon logged on. We were talking to him. He sounded a little down. So we were like, what's up, buddy? And Simon told us, and I feel like we should talk about it today. But before that, we're going to talk about this other thing that Melissa came on
we all
recently.
Have issues.
We all have issues, apparently. This is going to be an issue-resolving situation where we talk about creativity, how we get let me actually talk about the name, right? How to spark creativity, motivation, and inspiration. That'll be the first one, right? What if you're trying to do something artistic or even in business, anything else, and you just don't have the motivation to do it? How do you get it, right? And the second thing we're going to talk about is how do we deal with loved ones or people in our lives that don't agree or don't see eye to eye with a new lifestyle? Say like we decide to get healthy. Healthily and creatively. Say like we decide all of a sudden, hey, I want to prioritize health a little more, longevity. I want to be a little more productive. Maybe I'm doing a career change, something like that. And someone that we've been with for a very long time, maybe they don't see eye to eye with that. Maybe they feel a little insecure themselves. Who knows? How do we deal with that other person in our life that doesn't necessarily agree with or is not necessarily on board with our new direction, especially if that new direction is a healthier and better direction for us. Anyway, first we're going to start with this little discussion on creativity. Melissa, I want to kick it off.
So,
give us a little backstory. Yeah, tell us how this all came about.
I consider myself a somewhat creative type. Now, I say this because I think of myself as someone who can draw, but I don't necessarily always think that that's a creative thing. And I do watch a lot of, videos on creativity and read and whatever. I'm involved. But then I open my app. I've made my dreams of getting the devices I want, the apps I want, all of the tools that I was thinking would make my creativity flow so much easier. And it's like, of course. But then there's an empty canvas. What to do? Day after day. What to do? I have a default that I go to, but then after a while that also gets kind of boring, and you're drawing something that you don't really even want or have an idea of what you want it to be. You're just doing something because you want that feeling of like, oh yes, I'm going to do this and it's going to be inspirational and great and I'm going to want to finish it, and it's going to be 5 hours later and I was drawing the whole time, but you can't find it. Similarly, I've also dabbled in some writing, and I've also had instances where I'll think of a story and it's 2 a.m. and I'm just like, okay, great. Let me write this down. And everything's going great. And then I get tired, fall asleep. Next morning, I read what I wrote and I'm like, I have no idea where to go from here because it doesn't even feel like they're my characters. I'm not inside their head anymore. Similarly with drawing comics, which I guess those two things kind of go together. It's like, I don't really feel like drawing the same characters over and over again. Like, this is boring. And so I came to my good friend Francesco and asked, how do you keep creative when you want to be doing creative things, but you're not finding anything? Because I do want to create, and I like the feeling of, getting really involved in a project, but I can't find it. And so that was my story and my pondery and the topic that I brought to this episode. Please help me.
Yeah, I definitely have some thoughts, but before that, Simon.
Yeah.
Want to talk a little bit about yourself? And because you come from a little different, so you play piano.
I play piano and I play drums.
Yeah.
And
do you feel motivated to practice all the time?
No, definitely not.
Tell me.
And so, the whole thing of this is kind of where discipline comes in. when I feel motivated, obviously I practice and I have a whole schedule to do so. But the minute I don't feel like practicing, it's very hard to just get on the kit or get to a piano and just start practicing. So you kind of got to tell yourself that, well, I'm going to have days but when I am motivated, but I'm probably going to have more days when I don't feel like doing it. And if I only pick the days that I have motivated, then I know, especially because, you've definitely told me in the past, it's never going to happen if you just pick the days you're motivated to do it. So
What's never going to happen?
Whatever you want to accomplish or you become to get better at, it's not going to happen. So if I want to be a better drummer or if I want to be a better piano player, that's never going to happen if I just pick the days that I'm motivated to do it. So you just kind of got to keep thinking or you got to keep thinking future wise or big picture, and got to think, okay, well, even if you don't feel like doing it, just even getting on the kit for at least maybe 10, 15 minutes of the day and doing either your drill, some drill or another, that will help. And even then, like after you get on that kit, after you sit down, most of the time, you'll just keep going because you're like, all right, I already sat down, I'm already doing this. And then that you'll just want to do it after that. It's just sometimes you don't feel like actually just getting up and going there.
I mean, this goes back to like the hardest thing. The hardest part of it is starting, right?
Yeah.
Once you start, so Melissa, you have this issue with art. Simon, you have this issue with practicing. I have this issue sometimes with training, where I have a similar thing that I do, Simon, where I have a program, right? It's all like scheduled out for me. I know what I need to do on what day. If I don't feel like doing something, I force myself, and this is like you said, where the discipline thing comes in, which we'll talk about in a second. But I force myself to do the warm up. That's it. Whether that's if I'm swimming in a pool, I have to do the warm up set. If I'm strength training, I do the warm up sets. Whatever it is, I have to show up to the gym and do the warm up. And in my mind, I might have like a 2-hour grueling workout, but the warm up's only 20 minutes, 15 minutes, even maybe 30, whatever. But mentally, it seems a lot less, right, than the whole ordeal. Or if you're practicing, right, just doing 10 minutes seems a lot less than, I got to do a 90-minute practicing session on the drums or whatever. So mentally, it's a lot easier to manage. But then once you do it, you realize it's not that big of a thing. Like there have been hundreds of times that I did not feel like training, that I've showed up to the pool, did the warm up, and maybe there was. Actually, I honestly cannot think of a single time that I've then allowed, because I allow myself to quit after the warm up. I'm like, if I show up, I do the warm up, and I still don't feel like it, I can stop, right? Like that's what I tell myself.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single time that I actually have stopped after the warm up.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about, especially when it comes to fitness, we're not talking about like forcing yourself when you're sick or when there's something else going on. We're not. Obviously, those are different situations. Honestly, okay. So,
before you go on, sorry,
ahead, yeah.
I've definitely had times when I said, I would stop if after I do so and so. But unlike you, though, I have had this time where my head just wasn't in it. No matter, even with swimming, actually, because I've had that with swimming, right? I'd said, okay, I'm going to do this amount of laps and then stop. And now it has happened to me that I actually did stop because no matter how hard I tried, my head just wasn't in it and I just couldn't go faster. Mm-hmm. Mentally, I just wasn't there.
Which is still, even if you did only the warm-up and you quit after that, that's still better than having not showed up at all, right? So even if you do end up quitting, that's still better, I would say, than if you just had not even tried in the first place,
Yeah.
So with any of this, the first thing I sort of think of when you don't feel like doing something is figuring out why you even need to do it in the first place, right? Like, why is this something why is this something you want to do? Why is it something you have to force yourself to do? And then there could be a few different answers for that, right? For Melissa, like, why do you do art? Or why do you want motivation to do art?
Because when I have a project or when I have a picture in my mind that I want to get down, then it feels really good. It feels like I'm sharing something of my soul, if you will, with the world. And sometimes it feels like there's a feeling, but there's nothing that nothing concrete that I can think of that'll convey the feeling.
So you would say art is it's a very strong, like it's part of who you are.
Yes.
Okay. Simon, why do you do music? Why do you want to do piano and drums? Why do you have to practice? I guess is a better question.
Because there are things that I would like to play that I currently cannot play, and I want to get to that level.
Why?
Because I really enjoy the music. It's very therapeutic for me, very relaxing, and so it also feels like a great accomplishment and reward to do something that you work hard to do and get there.
That's fair. And I'll also add for the listeners that it is also technically part of your profession.
Oh, yes.
Which is honestly, the fact that you like it, the fact that the reason, the fact that came before you saying that was your profession is probably a good sign, right? Mm-hmm. If your first answer is, I have to practice because I have to, because it's part of my job, that might not be it. But the fact that you said you enjoy, so that's actually a good thing that was the order you said it in. But
for those who don't know, I'm studying to be a music teacher.
Yeah, he's getting his master's in music ed. So would you both say that those two reasons are they good reasons to continue to practice or do art?
I'd say they're good unless it turns out that...
it's not a trick question, by the way.
No, I know. I would say they're good enough reasons, and if it keeps you going, then great. But if it's still not enough, I would say have a goal. Then you start.
No, but we're talking about you.
Oh, for me?
Don't worry about other people. You.
No, for me, those are not good enough reasons. I have to have a structure and a goal. For example,
no, but I'm not. No. I'm not talking about the reason why you practice every day. Like, not something that gives you motivation, but are those the reasons why you even play music in the first place?
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And is that a good reason to even play music in the first place?
Yes.
Okay, Melissa, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Well, I do agree, but I actually think it's really helpful that you compared those two, because I would have said that Simon, I'm not in his head, but I would have said that he has to practice because, of course, it's part of his, it's a part of his career, and also he has lessons with other people who keep him accountable, and so did you practice? Whereas nobody's asking me, so did you draw today? So I like
that's a very good distinction, but Simon could also just quit those lessons.
Yeah.
Right? He could change his major. He could quit those lessons that are keeping him accountable. He could literally stop playing music. So I guess the question was, why do you not stop playing? Like, what's your reason for continuing? That was the basis,
Also, playing music is also good for the brain. It really does keep your brain active. It is. So.
But that's like saying you should eat healthy because it's good for you in the long term.
No, I know. I'm just throwing it out there to listeners, just in general.
So, Melissa, you and art, would you say that like the reasons that you gave, is that a good reason for you to continue art?
Yes.
Why the hesitation?
Because I forgot what I said. But I mean, I know what it, in my gut, I know what it is, and I like it because it brings me joy and, makes me happy. So I think that is a good enough reason. The weird part is actually practicing or sticking to...
No, I know. But so the first step was figuring out if their reasons are even good ones. Okay. Right? And you both have sort of realized or come to the conclusion that, yes, those reasons are important. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. If I don't know, I'm totally pulling something out of thin air, but like Simon, if your reason for practicing music was, I want to learn how to drum really quickly so that I can, once a year at this Christmas party, I can show off to my extended family, or I don't know, something. If that was your entire reason, that I would say is a weaker reason than the one you gave, right? So first, I would say figure out whatever it is that you want to get motivation for or inspiration.
It's got to be more personal to you, I would say.
Just stronger. You have to it has to be a good reason to you. Good. specifically to you, you know?
Yeah, like
Once you figure that out and you agree, yes, this is a good reason that I want to continue doing this, that's when the discipline comes in, right? Which is what you were starting to talk about, where,
yeah,
you know, there's a whole 80-20 rule. You can mess around with that, but let's just use that just to have some numbers. Let's just say 20% of the time you feel motivated and the other 80% you don't. Well, if you only practice the 20% that you do feel motivated, or 40 or 50, whatever it is, that's a lot of time that you are not practicing or improving, right? And I feel like that's even more true if it's something like your profession or something that you have to do,
right.
you know? And so I think the biggest, I mean, let's all go around and say like our biggest tip, right, of how to continue doing it. I would say the biggest thing that I have used is to understand that creativity, motivation, inspiration, they're all fleeting things, right? They're not reliable things. Mm-hmm. And by recognizing that, you can then say, okay, if they're not reliable things, what is a reliable thing that I can rely on, right?
Yeah.
If I can't count on those things to be around all the time, what can I count on? And the answer is discipline. And doesn't mean you have to like take all the passion and the emotion out of everything, right? That's not the point of discipline. Right. The whole thing of discipline is just
doing it when you don't feel like doing it.
Doing it when you don't feel like it, and most of the time, honestly, you end up feeling like it anyway at the end.
Yeah.
And it's big picture, right? So for me, the biggest thing is understand that those emotions, motivation, and whatnot are fleeting. So figuring out what is not fleeting, aka discipline. Uh-huh. And then so that's like sort of the bigger picture tip I have. So then the actionable tip that I have is whatever it is you want to do, figure out a much, much, much smaller and more manageable chunk of it. Whether it's, I have a 2-hour run session or something. So break it down to the warm-up, first 15 minutes. Or I have like a long practice session. Well, break it down to the warm-up. And just force yourself to do that small warm-up.
Yeah.
And give yourself permission to stop doing it after you finish. And most of the time, you'll find that you won't stop.
Yeah.
What's up, Melissa?
I forgot again.
You were going to say something?
I think it was something along the lines of that works, I think, a lot better. Or I personally can see the reason in that a lot more if I have a clear goal. I don't know that with a lot of my art, a lot of the time I have a goal. It's just... you know that
don't
feeling?
have to, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you know that feeling when you finish a really good book and then you feel like really empty and then you want to find something to fill the void? Well, I feel like that
Funny you mentioned that, yes. Go ahead and I'll go off the tangent, but go first.
Well, I was going to say that is either where you start writing fan fiction and that's where you're really inspired, or you start looking for other books. But when you are just browsing through like Kindle or like bookstore and you keep trying different books, because you want to chase that feeling, but nothing really works. And so in that case, this whole goal setting thing, I'm not saying that I don't agree with it. I think it's good if you actually want to see some results. But for me, it's more about how do I invoke that feeling of it again.
I totally understand what you're saying, but I would point out the difference that like what we were just talking about was not about goals. I didn't tell Simon what's your goal for doing music. It was why do you even do it? Like, what's your whole reason? Do you even enjoy it? Do you love doing it? His whole reason could be I love it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's not a goal, but that's a reason. So that's what I was looking for, not necessarily a goal.
But it seems weird to put structure or like to make yourself do something for something as vague as loving it or just wanting the feeling of.
Well, because you need the why to do the structure, right? Those aren't necessarily the same thing, but you need one to sort of support the other. A strong reason will support the structure that allows you to master that skill that brings you the reason, whatever your reason is, So why shouldn't,
aside from the reason that it makes me kind of frustrated that I, can't draw even though I want to be able to draw, why should I do all of that instead of just waiting for inspiration to hit me?
Because the whole reason why you started the conversation was you want to draw. right? Like when we first started
Yeah.
talking about, like when you called, you were like, I wish I could draw right now, but I just can't think of anything to draw. So what I just said, why don't you just draw, even if it's bad? You know, just commit to like even 5 minutes of drawing every day, and
So what does that get me?
it gets you more of those successful drawing experiences. That is the reason why you draw, or that is the reason why you said you draw in the first place.
Wouldn't say I draw for 10 days and I have 3 good drawings and like 7 bad ones. Wouldn't those 3 good drawings have been like, wouldn't I have wanted to do them even if I hadn't done the 7 other ones?
Not necessarily, because you might not have felt motivated to even start in the first place. But if starting is already a given, like that's not even part of your decision making, if you're already like, you are going to start, period, then you're not, like that's one less factor that is getting in the way of you having successful drawing
I did
times.
do the Inktober challenge, which is 30, how many days are in October? 31? 30? Days of ink challenge, and they give you a word for each day, and you need to, just draw whatever you think of, and doesn't have to be good, which I think that's what they were trying to do, is get people to just pick up their tools and start drawing.
Right.
But I honestly didn't feel like anything's changed, and I would think after a month you would. I mean, there was also school and stuff going on, but I honestly I did every day. I know some people who didn't, but I stuck to it. I did every day, but I really didn't feel any more changed at the end of it as opposed to the beginning.
Did you,
I felt like
first of all, what did you do every day? Like how much drawing? Did you like force yourself to do at least 5 minutes, or like how did you do that? You know,
I just forced myself to complete the prompt. So I would think of like, they would give me a word like ash or snow or something, and I would have to think. The first part of it was thinking of like an actual prompt. Some people maybe don't do it. Maybe they're more random about it, but I would think of like a scene or something, and then I would just draw that. And I had drawings that were very simple that maybe, yes, they did take me like 5 to 10 minutes to do. And then I've had others that I've spent hours. Well, maybe not. Well, few with hours. And I think those were the ones that I actually enjoyed. And then a lot of them would have been like 20 minutes to like 40.
So
I don't know.
all those ones that you enjoyed, if you hadn't been doing this Ink October thing, would you still have done them?
You mean would I have chosen to do them, or would I have had the chance? Which, no, I wouldn't have had the chance to do them because I wouldn't have had the prompts, but maybe I would have drawn something else.
Would you have drawn something else that is equally as good and as many that you did in October?
I don't know.
And obviously
if I
we're
can know
predicting because we
that.
have no idea.
Well, yeah, I feel like
Did you
I'm-
do more drawing in the month of October, successful drawings, than you do on like average months?
Huh. Okay, yes.
So isn't that worth it on its own? The fact that you had more successes that month. You also had more failures, I'm sure, but you also had more successes than you do on average, which is sort of the point, right?
So is this not something that's supposed to, I don't know what the right word is, get easier over time? It's just that's just what the process is? Because I was expecting after 30 days, that I would be a little more eager to just pick up and start, which wasn't the case.
No, because then again, you're trying to revert back to motivation, right? This is not about making motivation more permanent, right? It's just more about making the action of starting a habit, so that that's not even a decision you have to make, and then hopefully just increasing the number of positive days over negative days, right?
Okay.
Like in my example with working out, there are always days that I don't feel like working out today, even like today, and I've been working out for a while, right? And there will always continue to be days, but the energy that it takes me to, again, like just show up and just start and just do it is a lot less now than it was years ago, because it's just a habit now. Like it's not even a question that I won't even start, And second, because of all those consistent days that I force myself to do, I'm a much stronger athlete now than I was years ago. And I'm a much stronger athlete now than I would be today if I had allowed myself to not even start on all the days I didn't feel like working out,
Gotcha. And what would you say about expanding? Like, so I'm always kind of sort of curious to expand mediums or styles, but since it's so hard for me to sometimes even just get started with the stuff I am comfortable with, then doing things that I'm not comfortable with is like even more daunting. And plus I don't see colors, so it's so easier for me to say, I want to do like a more realistic or like a nature type scene, but there's a lot of colors in nature, and I am someone, other people would say, oh, it's fine, like just do your own colors, but that's not something that I want.
Right, you want it to be correct.
Even if it's stylized, I want it to be clear what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see the difference. It's something else artistic. I would just do,
But doesn't that make it double, like even more daunting than if I was just to say, okay, I'll draw what I'm, like, I don't feel like drawing anyway, but at least I'll draw what I'm comfortable with.
Yes, but if something we want to do is expand mediums, then again, you're not promising yourself excellence. You're promising that you'll start. So It doesn't matter how good or bad it is. The point is just doing it. The point is just starting.
Fair point. And I did ask you, I don't know if, Simon, is there anything that you want to add? I feel like I've been dominating the conversation. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. And I know we've also talked a little bit about the writing, which I touched on too. And then you say that having an outline helps, right?
Yes, but
what if you don't have the whole story?
Okay, so we're going a little more like granular, right? But no, actually, this is good because we can broaden it out. Whereas the deed that you want to do, whether it's writing a novel or doing a 90-minute piano practicing or a 2-hour workout, knowing what you're going to do removes the extra it removes one layer of resistance against starting.
Yeah.
Right. So I've learned from very early on that I have to know what my workout is before I show up.
Yeah.
Because if I'm there sitting on the end of the lane or on a bike, whatever, and I'm still thinking, what should I do today? Like it's never going to end well.
Yeah. I know the feeling. It's actually bringing me back to my paper. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because I've been struggling with this paper I'm writing, and to this day I still don't know what I'm going to do with it because it's a new topic for me, and outlining a new topic is pretty difficult. So the paper still hasn't been read.
Each field has like their own way to outline, right?
Yeah, like when a professor would ask me to write a music paper in the very beginning when I was a freshman or like my first year or two, it was kind of hard. But then I've gotten used to it, and then so like. My last year it was really easy to just write a paper, and the year before because I've gotten used to music. But then this is a whole different topic, and I don't really know what I'm doing.
See, I would argue that outlines make it a lot easier.
It does
because because you're basically and whatever subject you're writing about, whether it's even nonfiction or fiction, an outline is just creating a roadmap, right?
But
yeah,
what if
and because
the outline is where you're stuck though.
Yeah, and that's where I'm stuck because
well, then you're not stuck writing.
Well, yeah, and because I haven't written that outline because I don't know what I'm doing. That's why this paper hasn't been written yet.
Yeah, and I would start with different. Like an outline does not have to be a fixed thing, right? I would start with a super strategic outline. Say you're like outlining the first Harry Potter book.
Yeah.
The first outline could literally be like a paragraph long. There's a boy. He figures out he's a wizard. He goes to a school with magic students. Further along in the school year, he, discovers a underground thing and has to defeat the, Lord Voldemort and save the world and stop him from coming back to life. Like that could, whatever. It's like, but that could literally be the first outline and it's like 4 sentences.
Okay. That's actually a good one. Thank you.
Yeah, and then you break that down into maybe like 4 separate parts of the books. Like part 1, he discovers his wizard. Part 2, he like gets to know Hogwarts. Part 3, it introduces the challenge or whatever. And then part 4, he faces Voldemort. And then you split those 4 parts into like 5. Each part becomes 5 subsections.
Okay, so you're making a tree.
Yeah, exactly. Like an upside down tree or like a root system.
Okay.
But that's basically what an outline's supposed to be. And if you don't even know how you want your story to end, how do you expect to like write it, right? So that's always been my idea with outlines. And again, it could be actually writing, and could be practicing,
A
and could even be
sketch.
working out, right? If I don't know what I'm even training for, how am I supposed to figure out what I should be doing right now? Right? Like, am I training for a marathon? Am I training for a 1 mile time trial? Like, it's, there are things, yeah. So
like that.
figuring out the big picture, aka, or potentially it could go back to the whole reasoning situation that we were
We
discussing
love
earlier.
big picture, right, Simon?
Yeah.
Big picture, and then just zoom in and in and in. That is what I would do. Cool,
Cool.
Yeah.
awesome.
And now
That
let's
was
use all of these skills
yes.
to something practical.
Exactly, sort of. So that was Melissa's big issue. Let's pivot over to Simon's issue now.
Yes.
Simon, what's wrong with you, buddy?
Wow.
What is your issue?
Well, okay, let's see. Well, as an issue.
And let me preface that. Let me just title this section because we'll probably split this up.
Yeah.